kind of seeing that everybody isn't in a rebellious mode. Okay, there will be some colonists that look at this and go, whoa, that doesn't seem right. God, I don't think that was right to take 342 chests of tea, died at thousands of dollars in today's prices, and toss them overboard. That was really quite a waste. So even though the Boston Tea Party goes into American history as a positive thing for American colonists, there were some that wondered, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing? Because they knew what was going to happen as a result. The intolerable acts. They knew something bad was going to happen. The English weren't going to sit back and just take this. So that takes us to our next subtopic, which is the intolerable acts of 1774. Well, British officials and English merchants, as you can imagine, were absolutely furious over this Boston Tea Party. And so, to get even, so to speak, the British Parliament passed 4 new laws to strengthen British control over the colonists. So as a result of this Boston Tea Party, the British Parliament passed 4 new laws that would be used to strengthen their control over the colonists. So again, as a result of the Boston Tea Party, the British Parliament passed 4 new laws that would be used to strengthen British control over the colonies. What did the British call these laws? That's a tough word, isn't it? Anybody know how to say it?
Coercive acts?
Coercive, what'd you say? Coercive acts, if you don't get a tongue tied on it. Coercive acts. What did the colonists refer to them as? The intolerable acts. So the British called these new laws the coercive acts, while the colonists referred to them as the intolerable acts. Anyway, I'm going to give you 4 things that these new laws did. Okay? You tell me if you think they were intolerable or not. One, the new laws closed the port of Boston to all shipping. Closed down Boston Harbor. No ships in, no ships out. So the first thing these intolerable acts did is close the port of Boston to all shipping. Now they would open that back to those colonists when? What? Not when you're close, not when they bought tea. When they paid for the 342 chests that they ruined. Okay? So they said, we're closing down the port of Boston, Boston Harbor, to all shipping, and it's going to remain closed until the colonists pay for all the tea they dumped into the harbor during the Boston Tea Party. They pay for it all. Otherwise, the port is staying closed. This is interesting. They revoked Massachusetts' charter. What does that mean? They didn't have any rights to Massachusetts and said, if you don't have any rights to this, you won't hold any more town meetings, you won't have any government, you aren't even existing. They revoked their charter, the right to even live there. So, another one of those laws revoked Massachusetts' charter, which forbid the colonists there from having any town meetings. They didn't even have a right to be there. Another law stated that British officials in Massachusetts that were charged with crimes, just like those soldiers during the Boston Massacre, who were they tried by? Who were the soldiers? They were tried by American lawyers in an American court. The Intolerable Acts changed that stated that any crimes that any British officials or soldiers were charged with would now be tried in England rather than Massachusetts, which happened before. So they changed their tune that any crime that was committed by any British official or soldier would now be taken back to England and tried, which meant that what was going to happen to them?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Okay? So if a British soldier murdered American colonists, they would be tried in England, and more than likely, nothing would happen. The final part of the law required the colonists to provide food and housing for British soldiers that were sent to America to enforce what? These Intolerable Acts. So they're kind of back to the Quartering Act, only now they're having to house and feed soldiers that were enforcing a law that they didn't like, right? So, again, the new laws, known as the Intolerable Acts. One of the new laws closed the port of Boston to all shipping and would not reopen it until the colonists paid for all the tea that they dumped into Boston Harbor. Another of the laws of the Intolerable Acts revoked Massachusetts charter and forbid the colonists there from having any town meetings or governmental meetings at all. A third law provided that British officials in Massachusetts that were charged with crimes would be tried in England rather than Massachusetts. And the fourth law required the colonists to provide food and clothing and housing for British soldiers sent to America to enforce these new laws. And Great Britain was mad enough about the Boston Tea Party, they were determined they were going to enforce these acts no matter what. So, here's another thing they did. Who are they mad at, by the way? Which colony? Yeah, this is all Massachusetts, man. So they even sent General Thomas Gage, who was the overall commander of British Armed Forces in Britain. He controlled all the British Army and Navy. And they sent him to America and appointed him governor of Massachusetts. So they're going to make sure that charter stays pulled, right? So the British government sends General Thomas Gage, who is the overall commander of all British Army and Navy. He's the guy at the top of the chain of the Army, the military. They sent him to Massachusetts and named him governor of the colony. Because they want to keep these people in Massachusetts under their thumb and make sure they have no more problems. And what came with Governor General Gage? More troops. More troops, yep. Because they feel like they need to restore order. Yeah?
If they took the charter away and there was supposed to be like no government, and how is...
That's why Gates came. He's the new governor, and he will
now
rule.
that's
He
the
will.
charter, so they can still live there?
They're going to live there under British. I mean, remember they had a little bit of their own government, right? They're going to have none of their own government now because the British are sending the top military guy, appointing him governor, and sending more troops to make sure that they obey whatever happens in England. So they did take the charter away and took over their right to govern themselves in any way, shape, or form. Okay? Now, we'll tell you reaction to these acts. Okay? They put them on us. Now, what's the reaction going to be? Now, I kind of preface this a little bit earlier. In spite of what the British did in the Intolerable Acts, there were a large number of colonists who remained loyal to Great Britain, who thought that since they were British citizens, they should obey the laws passed by Parliament and quit protesting. There were people in the colonies that believed that. Many people. Okay? The squeaky wheel always gets the grease, right? In other words, the person making the most noise gets the attention. Okay? It's kind of the same thing here. The vocal minority in a group gets the attention. So in this class, some of you aren't liking the fact I lecture every day, so those 6 right back there holler and scream and protest and go crazy, and they get all the attention But you guys really are thinking, gee whiz it, you know, I think this is okay. We're kind of supposed to be loyal to Mr. Drury, he's kind of teaching the class. So that's kind of what's happening here. Not everybody in the colonies, especially Massachusetts, thought this was the right thing to do. And what these colonists did that were more loyal to Great Britain is they tried to get the colonists that were upset and the British to get together to work out a compromise. Let's settle these. We're tired of all this rioting and uprising, and this is unsettling. We think we should maybe work a little bit more with Great Britain. After all, we're British citizens and we should be loyal to our government. We can't agree with everything they do, but we can't continue all this violence and rioting and all these things that are getting us in more trouble, because the more you push the British, the more acts they're throwing on us. Come on, let's get a compromise here and get something done. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people oppose these intolerable acts. So they actually tried to take a little bit of advice from the loyal colonists. And on September 5th, 1774, delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies assembled in Philadelphia. Remember the Stamp Act Congress when 9 out of 13 got together? Well, this is a different deal, but 12 of the 13 colonies get together in Philadelphia on September 5th, 1774. Now, here's what I'm going to do, just for the fun of it. The first person,
That's not gonna work for you.
13 colonies. What?
Who's the one that didn't work?
Who didn't? I'll go send, okay, well this won't, okay, who was the one that didn't go? No, ironically not. Okay, you have a guess? Which colony didn't send a delegate? Think about the makeup of the colonies and why they were established.
Georgia.
Georgia. Georgia, is that what you're going to say? Yeah, Georgia was. Georgia didn't get represented. Remember, they were the buffer colony. They, you know what I mean? They were, you know, they were the buffer colony. So, on September 5th, 1774, very good, Cody, delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies assembled in Philadelphia with the exception of Georgia. Now, this meeting became known in American history as the First Continental Congress. And what they did is they adopted a series of resolutions. They adopted a series of resolutions. Did we look resolutions up yesterday? Chantel? Do you remember what that was? Anybody?
Of what?
Resolutions. Anybody write that down yesterday, the definition?
Statement of a body.
Statement of a body, a legislative body, okay? So, the legislative body this time is who? The First Continental Congress. Okay? Now, these resolutions demanded an immediate change in British policies. Okay, these resolutions demanded an immediate change in British policies. Now, this is what they stated. Now, I don't want you to write this down, but I want you to listen to it and tell me what you think it means. Okay, this is what the delegates asserted during that meeting. They said, quote, they asserted their rights to, quote, life, liberty, and property, to all the rights, liberties, and immunities of English subjects, to the free and exclusive power of legislation in their own several legislators. So what are they saying there? What is the delegate saying? Life, liberty, and poverty. They have the rights to life, liberty, and property, to all the rights, liberties, and immunities of English subjects. So the difference between property and poverty.
Yeah.
Did I say poverty the first time?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start over. Had one of these days. The delegates solemnly asserted their rights to, quote, life, liberty, and property, to all the rights, liberties, and immunities of English subjects, to the free and exclusive power of legislation in their own several legislatures. Let's start the first part. They said they had a right to life, liberty, and property. What are they saying? Pretty simple. They have a right to their own life, liberty to do what they feel, and their own property without what? Search. Okay? And, quote, all the rights, liberties, and immunities of English subjects. They want all the rights of English subjects. They want all the liberties of English subjects. and they want to be immune from the things that they don't like among the English government, okay? And then they want to be free and exclusive power of legislation in their own several legislatures. They want their own government, okay? Now, in addition, here's 3 things the delegates did at the First Continental Congress. Okay, there's 12 of 13 colonies represented. First thing they did is they pledged mutual support to each other. Who tried to get him to do that way back? Samuel Adams, right? He tried to get him to do this. He sent him a letter saying, let's unite. What did you say?
I was thinking Adams, but
What did you say?
Franklin.
Well, who was it? Okay. He did that way back in the Massachusetts legislature before, right? So they took his advice, and they pledged mutual support to each other. What else did they revive that worked really good twice? The non-importation agreements. They reenacted those again. Okay? They worked really well. They're going to try it again against these intolerable acts. And the third thing they did, which is even more harsh than the non-importation agreements, because basically that says we will not import anything from Great Britain, right? They also agreed not to sell anything to Great Britain or anybody in the British Empire. So not only are they not going to import any British goods, they're not going to sell any of the things like rice, that's pretty important, right? Or tobacco. They're not going to sell any of those products to the British. So not only are they banning importation, they're also agreeing not to sell them anything either. So they're cutting off trade totally with Great Britain. And they decided that they would do these things until the British government made compromises on the intolerable acts. They would do these things, not allow importing or exporting to Great Britain until the British made compromises on these intolerable acts. Got rid of them, or at least changed them where they could live with them. So they meet, the First Continental Congress meets, and they decide these things, and they put them into action, and then before they leave, the delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies agree that they will meet again in the spring of 1775. So they met in September of 1774, put all this stuff together, and then when they adjourned their meeting, they stated they would meet again in the spring of 1775. What do you think that meeting is going to be called? The Second Continental Congress. And this is going to lead us more towards really striking for independence, and it'll lead us to a revolutionary war. So the Second Continental Congress will be the thing that sets us up for revolution. Okay? All right, that is the notes. Make sure that you finish. You're going to get one more, you're going to get one more assignment on Monday. Okay, let's do it this way. Do you want a review on Monday, or do you want me just to give you another one of these short answer assignments, which basically is the test? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make up my mind. I'm actually going to give you another assignment, because is that going to help your grade or hurt your grade? Oh. Well, it's going to help it if you do them right. You know, if you do them like you're supposed to. And then that will be your review. So I'm going to make a little change here. A little change. Okay? I'm not going to have you turn in those assignments 1 and 2 on Monday. I'm going to give you assignment 3. I'm going to have you turn them in before the test. You can meet in the Commons, you can study through them. I'll have you turn them in, all 3, before the test, and we'll take the test. Yep.
So all the tests that have the options are definitely going to be on the test, but
Correct.
don't study anything else.
Correct among them.
Okay.
Yep. So study those 2 assignments, and then I'm going to give you another one on what we've lectured from that point. We'll turn them, you can work on, I do want it filled out. I want you to fill out the reviews. I want you to take them, study them. When I say spread out, I'll accept all 3. I'm going home.
Place to review, we know exactly what to study.
I'll tell you, no, I'm not going to ask you all.
It's 90 short
90 answers, that's right. I'll just ask you some of those 90, not all of them. I wouldn't.
But at least in the review, you know
Exactly what to study.
That's my point. Remember I said I wanted to try something here?
Don't study till 99.
So we'll explain for you Monday. Okay.
What are we studying?